citizenship.com, your go-to resource for U.S. immigration insights. We provide clear immigration news and information. Our platform provides a network of licensed attorneys who can answer your questions and guide you through the process. From visas to green cards, asylums to citizenships, immigrationquestion.com helps you to network with immigration attorneys so that you can move forward with confidence. Sign up today or download the app. Free registration, limited time offer. Stay tuned. We go live in 30 seconds.
Hello everyone and welcome to this special edition webinar hosted by immigrationquestion.com, a networking platform and meeting ground where immigrants, families, advocates and licensed immigration attorneys come together to better understand US immigration policies and procedures better. My name is GB Satusa and I'll be your host for this important discussion. How to gather strong evidence to support your naturalization application. Now, naturalization is one of the most important milestones in the immigration journey. However, preparing a strong naturalization application requires extensive documentation that demonstrates the applicant's eligibility, residency history, and compliance with immigration requirements. As USCIS continues to apply heightened review standards across many immigration categories, understanding how to document a naturalization case properly can help applicants avoid delays, requests for evidences or RFEs, or complications during the process. To help us break this down, we are honored to be joined by Nadine Atkinson, Esquire, an experienced immigration attorney who assists lawful permanent residents and families with naturalization and citizenship matters. Attorney Atkinson, thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you for this important discussion.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you very much for having me. I do pronounce my name Nadine, though, not Nadine. It's Nadine Atkinson.
Nadine Atkinson. Thank you so much, attorney, for that. Now, before we begin, a quick reminder to our audience, immigrationquestion.com is a public educational and networking platform. The information shared today is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute individualized legal advice. If you're joining us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or any other platform, welcome. Please subscribe and share this session with anyone who may benefit from understanding the naturalization process. Attorney Atkinson, let's dive right in. What are the eligibility requirements applicants must meet before applying for US citizenship through naturalization?
Thanks again for having me. As it relates to eligibility requirements for citizenship, generally there are two prongs. So there's prong one, where you might be seeking to become a naturalized citizen on the basis of marriage. If it is that you're seeking that basis, you must prove that your marriage has been in subsistence for 3 years and that your marriage continues to be in subsistence, meaning you're still married, and as such, that 3-year threshold. If it is you're seeking to become a naturalized citizen on the basis of, pardon me, the fact that you have been in the United States as a green card holder for a minimum of 4 years and 9 months, and that is your basis of eligibility. There's also the eligibility whereby if you are a member of the military, you can literally become a naturalized citizen upon the requisite number of days of service in the armed forces. So those are the three broad categories. Everyone who is seeking to become a naturalized citizen, you must fit yourself into one of those categories. And the application form actually shows you the different possibilities to make it easier for you. And of course, your attorney can help.
Now, attorney, what types of evidence does USCIS expect applicants to provide with a naturalization application?
As it relates to your evidence, I always like to say that for every application, you increase the chances of your approval even before you begin to submit your application to USCIS. There are certain documents that are mandatory, and then there are certain documents that are more along the lines of if you've got it, then fine. Mandatory, one, a copy of your permanent residence card, your green card, the front and the back. Two, your birth certificate. And if it is, for example, you are going on the basis of marriage, obviously your marriage certificate, and they may well require some proof of the subsistence of your marriage. You also are required to indicate how many trips you've taken out of the country, for example, because there's a very significant requirement that you are in the country more than you've been out of the country. So those are absolutely crucial. Now, some evidence that might be important, for example, if it is you're paying child support, if you've got a child under 18, you must indicate to USCIS how you are paying for that child. If you've got tax obligations with the IRS, that is important as well, because good moral character is something that the USCIS is going to look at, because this is their final opportunity to examine if you or I are the types of person that they would want in the country. And obviously, paying your taxes and your other legal obligations is important.
Yeah, true. Now, what are the most common reasons that naturalization applications are questioned or even denied today?
That's such a good question, because persons tend not to realize that it is not the interview that is the most significant arbiter of whether or not they're going to get their naturalization. The most significant arbiter is the documents that you have presented to USCIS. And so I have found in my practice over the years that something as simple as not checking to ensure that your form is filled in correctly, whether you're submitting online or by mail, can lead to a denial, or it can actually lead to delays. Because, for example, if you look at my name is Nadine Atkinson Flowers, and that's how I've styled myself for many years. Yeah. If it is, I was married before and I was Nadine Brown, the government through USCIS needs to be aware of that. And I have to prove the way in which I changed from one surname to a new surname. And obviously that would be through divorce documents, or if unfortunately you had a spouse that died. So when persons are doing their applications and you think, how can I ensure that this application is not rejected or denied or delayed? Think, how do I prove everything that I'm talking about? I think that's the best way to help persons to figure it out.
Yeah. How does USCIS evaluate good moral character during the naturalization process?
Now, good moral character has a particular meaning in law. As it relates to the law for naturalization, it requires, one, you have been paying your taxes, or you have agreements in place with the IRS as it relates to taxes. Two, you indicate to USCIS whatever child maintenance obligations you might have. As I said before, any child under 18, you must prove how you are taking financial care of that child. USCIS requires that as part of the process. Another component of good moral character is if you have had any issues, interactions with the criminal law in the past 5 years. Now, it is the past 5 years that is usually considered. However, USCIS is at liberty under the prong of good moral character to examine any interaction that you had even 20, 30, 40 years ago as it relates to the criminal law. And so if you had an arrest, a citation, you were stopped in the airport when you were coming in as a visitor and questioned in detail if you were sent back, if you went back to your country voluntarily, all of those will be considered under good moral character. And most significantly, you have to provide USCIS with the information about whatever it is that happened, whether it's for the past 5 years or it's for something much, much further back in your memory. And this is a very good point, because persons will indicate to USCIS that this happened or that happened, but they fail to indicate using the documentary evidence, because that's what USCIS wants to see, to be able to say, yes, this is the type of person that we want. Blessing is the type of person we want in the US. Nadine is the type of person we want in the United States as a citizen. So those are extremely important points as it relates to the methods in which they judge good moral character. About 6 months to a year ago, it was indicated by USCIS that they would now be going back to something that they had been doing many years ago, which is to go into persons' communities to find out about them. In my own practice, I have not seen that happening for my clients who have been going for their citizenship. And that is a very slippery slope, because, for example, if you live in a gated community where you are not known to your neighbors, it's difficult if you come and you say, Miss Blessing, have you known Miss Flowers? Do you know if she's the type of person we'd want here in the US? You can't say, because you do not know me. Or perhaps even more nefariously, you have ill intent toward me. And you may well say something to USCIS that prejudices my application. So I'm glad that so far I have not had for my own clients that situation, but all of those things encompass the good moral character.
All right. Now, Attorney, for applicants applying through marriage to a US citizen, what evidence helps establish a bona fide marital relationship?
I'm so glad that you asked it in that way as it relates to a bona fide relationship, because persons will say, oh, I'm married, and it's obvious that I'm happily in love with my spouse. But that's not USCIS's view. USCIS's view is you must prove it. You must bring that evidence. And so excellent ideas as it relates to proving the bona fides: joint tax returns, or you can ensure that if you live together, you have your lease. If you are a mortgage owner, you have a house that has a mortgage, you can submit a copy of the mortgage document. If you have your joint bank accounts, all the things that show that your lives have been commingled, that's the word that the law uses, showing that your lives, two lives, have joined and become one and remain one. Those are the important things. If you've got children, copies of their birth certificates, trips abroad, that kind of thing. Whatever you think can show that this was, has been, remains, and will always be a bona fide relationship. So sometimes persons might think, oh, but we don't have a house together, or we live with my mother, or we live with my father. That's not the crucial issue. Crucial issue is, how can you present the documents to show that yours still remain a true marriage?
Yeah. Now, what final advice would you give applicants trying to build a strong, well-documented naturalization case in 2026?
I would say make sure you document everything. As we speak, I am making my notes, and I'm an attorney who has been doing this for some time. Don't take anything for granted. Read that instruction carefully. Complete that application if you're doing it online or by paper, also very carefully, and check it, because even simple mistakes can lead to, as I said, delays, or worse yet, denials. Ensure that you've got all your evidence. If you have sent in copies of documents, for example, marriage certificates, birth certificates, make sure you have that original to take with you to the interview. Make sure that whatever address you put on the document, you have access to that address, as in you'll be able to get your mail, and because it's a good address. Make sure too that you keep file with all the documents, because when you go to the interview, you are going to need to present the originals. Importantly, too, you must ensure that you are studying for the naturalization, the civics portion of the test, of the interview, because you will be asked questions. They're supposed to be asking 20, and you get, I believe it's 12 correct. There are 100 questions, 120 now that you have to know about US history, civics, geography, and so on. And they can ask in any random order the questions, and you are expected to get them correct. There's a portion of writing a simple sentence in English and also reading a simple sentence in English. Now, persons might get nervous in their interview, so it's also a good idea to prepare before you go to the interview, because the interview is just like you and I are sitting here and having a conversation. But of course, a lot is riding on it for you, the client, you, the person who's seeking to be naturalized. And so it's only natural persons might get nervous. And so I always suggest to persons, don't take it for granted. Prepare, present yourself in a calm and confident manner. If you're asked a question in your interview you don't understand or you're not sure, do not guess. Say, can you repeat that for me? Or I don't understand. But can you rephrase that? Those kinds of words are important when you go to your interview, especially if you don't go with an attorney and if you prepared your submission yourself.
Thank you so much for those insights, Attorney.
Certainly.
Now, for everyone watching, this discussion about naturalization applications is not meant to create fear around the citizenship process, but rather to provide clarity about the types of evidence and preparation that may help applicants present stronger cases. Careful documentation, honesty, and understanding of the legal requirements can make a significant difference throughout the process. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. ImmigrationQuestion.com is a networking platform where users can ask immigration-related questions at no cost and engage with participating attorneys. We're also proud to share that ImmigrationQuestion.com is BBB accredited and ISO certified, reflecting our commitment to transparency, accountability, community education, and security. Attorney Atkinson Flowers, based on your experience assisting lawful permanent residents with citizenship applications, how does a platform like immigrationquestion.com help immigrants and immigration attorneys like yourself?
Well, the platform is very useful because you are assured as a potential client that you will be getting useful information from practitioners. And if I may say so, it's very important that persons recognize that if they are using persons who are not attorneys to assist them for their immigration cases, you literally are taking a significant risk. It is good to ensure that whomever you utilize for your immigration proceedings is somebody who is preferably an attorney, because we have significant obligations as it relates to our clients. Certainly for attorneys, the platform is also useful because we are able to give general information to persons who may be seeking information as it relates to immigration and, of course, the potential for clients. And we get to understand some of the issues that persons are facing through the questions that you have asked in sessions such as these.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those thoughts. Now, before we move into our live Q&A, let's tackle this important question. What is one common misconception that applicants have about the naturalization process that you believe should be clarified very early on in the process?
Well, certainly as it relates to this issue of dual nationality, many persons feel that if they become naturalized US citizens, they lose their original nationality. There are perhaps only about 20 countries in the world that require that you have a single nationality. The United States is not one of those as of now. For example, I'm a Jamaican by birth. I maintain my Jamaican citizenship, and I also have my US citizenship. That I found to be quite an interesting feature of a lot of persons with whom I've interacted. They're of the view that, oh, if I become a citizen, I cannot remain a citizen of whatever country I'm from. That is not correct for most persons. I also think persons need to understand that citizenship naturalization has many, many benefits. For example, if you are a naturalized citizen and unfortunately you run into some negative interactions with the criminal law, you have far more protections than if you were a green card holder, permanent resident. Certainly, there is also the right to vote, to have a voice in what happens in the politics in your community. And of course, if you're a citizen, you are able to get your US passport. There are certain jobs that are only for citizens. And so it does offer you a wide gambit of making a positive contribution to the country once you're eligible.
All right. If you're just joining us, we've been speaking with attorney Nadine Atkinson Flowers about how to gather strong evidence to support your naturalization application. We are now moving into our live Q&A session. This is your opportunity to ask general questions and hear educational insight from a licensed immigration attorney. Please drop those questions in the chat or call us live at 516-703-3483, and we'll take as many as time permits.
If I may,
Go ahead, attorney.
Okay, I see the question. Shall I answer it? Or shall I read it first?
Let's read it out first.
What evidence is needed for US naturalization beside my green card and proof of address? Very good question. But when you're going through that application, you will see it doesn't only ask for proof of the green card, it also asks for proof of address, but the proof of address is for the last 5 years. It's not for where you've lived for the last month or 3 months. It's for the last 5 years. And so if you have any gaps, that must be addressed. Online, it's easier because the computer will not allow you to proceed if you're not filling in all the gaps. But on paper, it's easier to make that mistake. So you must make sure that you provide addresses for the last 5 years, as well as employment and or any schooling for the last 5 years. Any travel out of the country, that must also be indicated on the form. If you've traveled for a long period, let's say you spent 3 months and 5 months, you need to check very carefully that you've actually been in the US more than you've been out of the US. And in any event, you should ensure that you've got those stamps to show the travel. It's also important to recognize that where you file, if you're filing by paper, you will be required to have lived there for at least 3 months. The application actually says, have you lived at address XY for the past 3 months? And so you have to make sure that you're also fulfilling that particular bit of evidence. As I said before, if you have childcare in terms of maintenance obligations, that's important. If you have divorced, that's important. I saw a scenario recently and I can't remember having thought about it, if it's something I've seen before. My client was required to have his passport from his original country, and it seems that it needed to have been a valid passport, as in it was not expired. It could have been something that I've had before and didn't really notice, but since we're here on the platform, I thought it useful to bring it up. Another thing in terms of evidence, traffic tickets. Usually persons would be thinking, oh, I have a traffic ticket. It's not that big a deal. I don't have to pay it. Only recently, a situation occurred where the person had traffic tickets, and that was, I'll be forensic and say a high point of discussion in the interview. So if you've got traffic tickets, whether it's $100 or $1,000, it is advised that you make haste and you pay those. The application is such that you need to ensure that if there's something particular or specific to you, you're providing that evidence. If you're divorced, obviously you need to provide a copy of that as well. So I think all of those will really cover the evidence that you need.
All right. All right. How do I prove continuous residence in my N400 application if I stayed outside the US for more than 6 months?
Now, I don't remember the exact number of days, but what we would do is to literally do a mathematical formulation of how many days you've been in the country and how many days you've been out. I think that's probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
If you've been here and you want to prove your continuous residence, you need to provide, for example, your pay stubs, proof that you were paying your bills, so your electricity, your telephone, your banking. Essentially, what you want to prove is that you have not abandoned your green card status. It's just that for whatever reason, you had to stay out of the country. And you'd also make sure that you give a valid explanation of that. So whatever you can present in a documentary fashion as it relates to showing that, yes, I am here and contributing. I have not given up my residence in the United States. Those are the type of documents that you need to provide.
All right. Is it mandatory to submit documents proving good moral character when filing Form N400?
Well, as I said, the good moral character is examined as a whole. So it's not that there's a document that you use to prove your good moral character. It is that by the application itself and all that is required in the application, you prove your good moral character. So for example, if I have not paid my taxes for the last 15 years, that is going to be seen by the interviewer as not a checkbox, but an X as it relates to my good moral character, because paying our taxes helps all of us, helps our schools, helps our hospitals and all of that. So it is not that there's a particular document that you submit to prove your good moral character. It is more all of the documents that you submit accumulate to help prove that you are the type of person that the United States wishes to have here as a naturalized citizen.
All right. Now, Attorney, recent reports indicate that DHS has ordered furloughed employees back to work amid the ongoing government shutdown. When immigrants and employers hear about DHS employees being called back to work during a shutdown, many may wonder whether immigration cases will continue moving forward normally or if disruptions are still likely. How should individuals interpret these developments, and what practical steps can they take to stay proactive while government operations remain uncertain?
Well, in terms of being proactive, I say if you are eligible for a benefit and you're not in any danger, in terms of being picked up and that kind of thing, you should go ahead and apply for your benefit. As it relates to how you should think about how fast or how slow your case is going to be adjudicated, unfortunately, that is only a question that USCIS and the immigration courts can answer. But I would say to persons, ensure that during this time, whatever application you're submitting, you do so literally crossing every T and dotting every I, as precise an application as you possibly can to increase your likelihood of approval. Start with this question and finish with this question. How can I make this interviewer or this person who is looking at my application go to yes instead of to a question. That is what you should think in your mind, whether you're using an attorney or you're completing the applications by yourself. How do I get to an approval the first time around?
Yeah.
That is how I think you should approach your filing. That is how I approach all of my clients' filings.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this special edition webinar. And thank you to our guest attorney for sharing her knowledge and practical guidance with us. You can always visit immigrationquestion.com to ask immigration-related questions, stay informed about policy updates, and register for upcoming live events. If you missed any part of today's important discussion with Attorney Atkinson Flowers, the replay will be available on Spotify soon. Just search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. We look forward to seeing you on Wednesday at our next live session. Until then, stay informed, stay prepared, and stay connected. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Take care. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Attorney.